Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamu alaikum. Normally I work, unlike some of you, on the weekend. That is Saturday, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. And believe me, being a TV analyst and trying to keep up with the news isn't easy, but I try. So as a rule, on Fridays, Saturday, and Sundays, I sit in front of the TV or use the phone and get information. But Mr. Nusrat Mirza never takes no for an answer. So he has dragged me here. When I say dragged me here, almost literally, because I tried to get out of it, but I couldn't. But he is a man who is very persuasive. Now, I work over the weekends, and I need to work because my pension isn't enough. We have my colleague, Ambassador Hassan Habib, sitting at the end of this. I'm sure he's working because his pension isn't enough. Now, I don't know if General Moinuddin Haider is working, but I believe his pension is sufficient. So let me begin. I don't know if any of you have lived and worked in America like I did when posted to our embassy in Washington and then later to our new UN mission in New York. But if you did, if you had, during your sojourn there, I'm sure you must have come in contact with official America. Well, I did on an almost daily basis. And the one thing that I can tell you with conviction is that official America, that is bureaucrats and politicians, have very little regard for Pakistan and zero affection. And for this negative perception of our country, society, and policies, both are to blame. You see, ladies and gentlemen, and I'm actually delighted at the presence of ladies. Wherever I go and the subjects I talk about, you hardly see a lady. But anyway, so I'm delighted at the presence of ladies. No man or nation can wear one face for himself and another for the world. Where we stand in the view of others is determined by where we stand in our own eyes. When Donald Trump depicted African nations, in his words, as shitholes, he not only reflected the image most Americans have of these countries, but also how they stand in their own eyes. By they, I mean not the government and rulers of these countries, but their hapless citizens. Donald Trump, as you will recall, also had some choice insults for Pakistan. He called us liars and cheats, and in so many words, deceitful scum. He also insinuated that he would fix us unless we did what he said. But Trump did not say all that stemming from his own experiences. Dealing with Pakistanis, didn't say that stemming from his own experiences in dealing with Pakistanis, but as a result of the briefings he received at the Pentagon and the State Department, and perhaps some of his friends who have wandered off here. But that's hardly surprising, because at one time or another, I too have had to suffer American officials suggesting that we seem to be a weak people. We lack a strong sense of nationhood. We suffer from low self-esteem, probably because our institutions are weak and that the blocked political system Pakistan has labored under, that is, overriding power and influence of family-based parties, seems incapable of change. It is a pity, actually. I once heard a middle-level State Department official tell me that just when we expect you to stand together, Pakistan appears to be a house divided. Be that as it may, the fact remains that our foremost problem is our direction. We have strayed too far and for too long from the vision of our founder, Jinnah. Bombarded by imported extremist views of Islam for the past 4 decades, we have unhinged ourselves from the vision of Jinnah. Our salvation in terms of direction lies in returning to Jinnah's version of Pakistan. Our second most important problem is one that I had made a passing reference to earlier, namely the phenomenon of elected family dictatorships. The impact this has had on our elite, Ashrafia, is to act less as citizens of the state than as subjects of the ruling family, and to extend to the family and party of the elected strongman loyalty over and above that accorded to the state. It is sad that grown men and women, though wizened by experience, bow and scrape before young political novices merely because of the accident of his or her birth. When Nawaz Sharif sends bouquets and presents them to the Clintons on such occasions as their birthdays, I am not sure what he wants to stress. His relationship with the Clintons or that of Pakistan. Thirdly, we suffer from a leadership vacuum at the strategic level. We need people who will tell people the truth and not sugarcoat realities. But that's like asking for the moon here. It's for this reason that soldiers, by virtue of being ex officio guardians of the people and the ideological values of the state, decide to step in from time to time. I am not making excuses for coups, but merely stating why they occur. Then there is the question of our image. Today in the globalized world, our image is of a state in limbo. That is, a state overwhelmed by internal problems and plagued by corruption, confusion, and division. And that's an image we cannot afford, certainly not as a state with nuclear weapons. Of course, some of you may say things are not so bleak. After all, we are 200 million people, crucially many more young than old. We have agriculture, industry, expertise, roads, railways, airlines, a strong army, nuclear weapons, etc., etc. But as you know, the erstwhile Soviet Union had all this. And not only all this, it had more. It pumped 10 million barrels of oil per day, but it still collapsed. Ladies and gentlemen, in the international arena, a global rebalancing of power is underway. This has had to do with China's rise the economic shift from the West to the East, and the US pivot to Asia. Trump's preference for conflict over democracy with Iran and Pakistan, his desire to retain bases and forces in Afghanistan, and of course, Washington's nuclear agreement with India are the factors of this new rebalancing. But Pakistan's external environment also has changed. Close to where we are sitting in the new American consulate is the new American consulate. It cost $1 billion to build. In it, there is a room for 800 Marines. The consulate owes its location and its proximity to Karachi Harbor. In an emergency, American Marines can blast their way in from their landing ships and into this fort-like complex and the safety of the reinforced concrete walls before presumably spreading out to complete their assignment. Another such fort-like complex is the US Embassy in Islamabad, reputedly the largest and most important US intelligence gathering center in the region. In it are monitoring devices which, with the help of US satellites above, monitor the enrichment process and pinpoint where enrichment is taking place. Across the border in Afghanistan, there are 5 large American bases. Their construction cost $13 billion. They were built to allow the American occupiers to stay on in Afghanistan indefinitely. These bases have several thousand special troops, helicopters, special equipment. What are they there for? They are not there to fight the Taliban. You don't need that equipment to fight the Taliban. They are there if the need arises to seize our nuclear assets. They have no other purpose. Also in place are the political constructs that the US may need to wage war in this region. And these are, I think, as important, or perhaps even more, as those made of iron and concrete, to which I had referred to earlier. Specifically, I refer to the US-India Strategic Agreement. Pani ho gayi? US-India Strategic Agreement, the US-Afghanistan Strategic Agreement, the US-Afghanistan Bilateral Strategic Agreement, the US-India Agreement on the sale of enriched uranium, and the US-India Intelligence Cooperation Agreement. With regard to the US-India Strategic Relation Agreement, it is the new version, it is the new world version of the old Cold War Indo-Soviet Treaty, which by neutralizing Chinese support for Pakistan, virtually guaranteed the outbreak of the India-Pakistan War and its successful conclusion by India. India's present-day war doctrines are based on the presumption that nuclear weapons will not be used in a short, intense, India-provoked conventional war on Pakistan. And any threat of them being used by Pakistan will be neutralized by India's American alliance and the UN acting under US pressure, much as was done in the case of chemical weapons in Syria. Under this, America also seems determined to build, under this agreement, to build up India as a nuclear power. Needless to say, the military implications of this is a cause of great concern to Pakistan. US-India military cooperation threatens to upset the strategic stability in the Indo-Pakistan nuclear and conventional arms equation. Pakistan's nuclear deterrence may lose credibility after India acquires anti-ballistic missile systems from the US, Israel, and Russia to reinforce its second strike capability. Let us not forget that India already possesses a nuclear triad, that is land, sea, air, ability to strike against us. With regard to the US-India Intelligence Cooperation Agreement, the document may not actually say so, but few doubt its purpose, namely to wage war, a fifth-generation war on Pakistan and the CPEC project, by promoting ethnic, sectarian, media wars and generally destabilizing sensitive areas, especially Balochistan. By the way, the India-US agreement on the sale of enriched uranium helps boost India's nuclear weapon production capacity by as much as 25 bombs per annum. In other words, they import the enriched uranium and use the enriched uranium they have enriched for their civil nuclear facilities. So it's like giving them a subsidy to build bombs. Ladies and gentlemen, surely it's time to read the writing on the wall. The redesigned, reinforced state-of-the-art buildings in Islamabad and Karachi, the 5 huge US bases in Afghanistan, the plethora of agreements concluded with India and Afghanistan are nothing but a noose to strangle, disarm, and disintegrate Pakistan. There have always been 2 fundamental problems undergirding Pakistan-US relations. First, instead of a broad partnership that includes trade and cultural relationships, the 2 countries have a one-dimensional transactional relationship centered on security concerns, i.e. war against Al-Qaeda, TTP, etc. Relations are further complicated because of clashing security interests. Pakistan and the US stand on opposite sides of the fence on almost all issues. Our enemies are different. Our plans for the region are poles apart. The roles we envisage for each other are in stark contrast. Our positions on key matters of international law and current world issues such as Palestine, Kashmir, Iran, and nuclear disarmament are not only different, they're completely at odds. These are not minor problems that will yield to quick fixes, let alone a solution. In my view, they seem irreconcilable. Therefore, perhaps you will agree with me that the time has come to question the importance and efficacy of the American alliance, to resist the temptation to benefit from American largesse and the weapons we need for our defense, and to start living within our means, and to concede that the price tag for the alliance has grown more exorbitant while our capacity to foot the bill in terms of reciprocity has shrunk further. Anyway, American goodwill for Pakistan, though important, is no longer essential. This is what happens if you don't have a printer. For the nuclear shield helps Pakistan deter India and generate a sense of confidence within the country. In other words, we don't need the Americans. We have a nuclear shield, and that generates confidence. We think it's sufficient to deter India. And it should end Pakistan's perennial need for allies like America to offset India's conventional military superiority. Let us also acknowledge, frankly, that the longer we remain tethered to the Americans, the greater the chances of greater ruin. We need to cut our losses and free ourselves from an embrace that has become a suffocating one. Nothing, for example, is more absurd than that the Americans should be in the business of killing and be killed in Afghanistan, even as they declare they wish to make peace with the Taliban. The absurd Afghan war has truly plunged Pakistan into civil conflict and effectively destroyed our chances of emerging as a strong, united nation for another generation. In short, the American alliance is a luxury we can ill afford. Yes, old creeds that have shrouded policies must be abandoned. Putting the American connection behind us sensibly and deftly should now be the priority of the moment. But that said, ending an alliance relationship does not mean an abrupt shift from friendship to enmity. That would be a mistake and an emotional response. What it means is a determined and diligent effort should be made to realign our external relations so that we have more options and more space within which to address our national interests. We cannot throw caution to the winds and risk a rupture, an unrestrained rift between Pakistan and the United States would, in my view, be bad, very bad for both. Now, just today or yesterday, as you know, two things happened in our relationship with the Americans. One was the diplomats issue, and the second was the, what was the second one?
UN vote on the...
Oh, the Khorasan, yeah, the Khorasani. Now, what is this? You want to bully Pakistan. You know, we in Pakistan have one regulation for all missions. We say, if you want to go to sensitive areas in Pakistan, you are here, Mr. Counselor, perhaps you can enlighten us. When we want to go to these areas, please ask permission, because we want to inform the authorities, the police, the army, whatever, whoever is in charge of that area, that look, a foreigner is coming, he needs special protection, special care. We don't do it only for the Americans, we do it for everybody. All foreign missions. They, on the other hand, when there's absolutely no need to do so, have said Pakistani diplomats can't go more than 25 miles out of Washington. And said that they're being reciprocal. How are they being reciprocal? We only say inform. And we say inform because. We don't say, we are not putting it for them, but they've put it only for us. They probably have it for the Chinese and the Russians, but I don't think they have it for many other missions. I was there for 3.5 years, and nobody ever dreamt that it would come to such a pass. Now, then there is this Khorasan, what's Khorasani? Khorasan, whatever it is. Khorasani. I mean, a terrorist who the Americans have admitted they have droned, and on whose deaths they once announced, and then they had to take it back. He is a man, he belongs to a banned organization, so quite naturally we went to the UN and we said, please ban this man, declare him to be a terrorist or whatever it is, and take action against anybody who helps him. The Americans said no. What does that mean? That means, am I to understand it, that you've done a deal with him? That from now on he won't kill the Yanks, but he'll kill Pakistanis? What's the deal that you've done with him? What's the deal that first made you bomb him or drone him, and now you stand in front of the world and say, no, we don't think you should have him on the list? It means that it is true. it means that there are elements in ISIS, there are elements in Al-Qaeda, there are elements in Daesh or whatever, and we know for a fact that there are large elements of the TTP now sheltering in Afghanistan that are given shelter, equipment, training, money, arms by India, by NDS, that is the Afghan agency, and who knows who else, most probably by the CIA too, because this Khorasani decision is completely incomprehensible. So I think I'll end here. I'll simply say, I basically pose two questions. Do we need this friendship? Can we bear the cost? Do we have the will to get out of it? The leadership to get out of it? Well, let's see. Time will tell. Thank you very much.